Today, a melting 4090 connector RMA gets denied. A quick update, AMD kept their promise, Ryzen 9000 might be worse than we thought, and Nvidia's RTX 5090 is massive? Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. First up for today, if you've been following the channel, you know that 4090 owners are still having issues with melting connectors. A while back, when Gamers Nexus did that deep dive on the melting connector issue, I was convinced that the problem really was users not fully inserting cables. But since then, it's really felt like the issue hasn't ended, with more and more users running into this problem. One even melted after a full year of use, not to mention the fact that a new connector was recently released, CableMod had to recall and cancel their adapters for the same issue, and more recently, a repair shop claimed that they're having to fix hundreds of connectors. So it's really not looking great for 4090 owners. Well, today, one such owner on the Korean forum Quasar Zone claims that his GPU melted and yet his RMA was rejected because of user error. And according to him, he was using the original connector. The GPU was made by Manly, which you may have never heard of, but they're a better known brand overseas. Now, the company that rejected them was a distributor, but still. Disappointed! Maybe companies are getting way more RMAs than they expected, which could be the case given the repair shop's claim. That's really just speculation, but if GPU manufacturers start denying melting connector claims due to user error, Nvidia could have a serious problem on their hands, especially given it was apparently enough of an issue to update the connector for this exact problem. Next, I have a really quick update on a story I recently did. In the video, I discussed a known leaker who claimed that Intel's Battlemage, specifically their discrete version of it, isn't coming next year. That led me to believe that they likely weren't coming at all. Well, he later clarified to say that he's referring to mobile discrete GPUs, not their desktop variants. So it does look like those are coming, but still, with Intel phasing out one thing after another, all the firings, etc., it's looking more and more like they're slowly backing out of the market. Hopefully I'm wrong here, but time, as always, will tell. And next up for today, AMD is actually keeping their promise when it comes to open sourcing more of their GPU software stack. If you remember, just last month, AMD announced that they would be releasing documentation and open sourcing their micro engine scheduler. What's wild is that they claim that the documentation would come at the end of May, with the scheduler source code being published after. Well, it looks like AMD's actually ahead of schedule, as they just published the documentation, and you'll notice that it's not the end of May. If you remember, all of this started when George Hotz from Tiny Corp complained about issues with AMD's firmware, and even stated that he'd fix the LLVM spilling bug if they would open source it, to which AMD CEO responded by ultimately saying the team is on it. Well, they clearly are. The documentation itself is a 54-page PDF with some interesting diagrams and information. Either way, it's clear that AMD's taking this seriously, and I can't wait to see what all they open source. Next up, it looks like Ryzen 9000 may not be as fast as we thought. This story originally comes from a post in Weibo by Lenovo China's manager. In the post, he claims that from what he sees, Zen 5 only has a 10% increase in IPC compared to Zen 4, and single-threaded Cinebench is over 10%. I'm assuming he doesn't mean that it's a lot over, because he starts the post by questioning leaks on a 40% performance increase. Now, I will say that the leak he's referring to is specifically in a spec benchmark, so it's not referring to overall IPC. And obviously Cinebench isn't the same type of benchmark Kepler mentions, but I would assume the performance difference isn't going to be that big. Hopefully Kepler has seen more recent engineering samples or something along those lines, but I will say that this is pretty disheartening. With that said, we are only talking single-threaded performance in both of these benchmarks, so hopefully full multi-threaded performance is much better. Also, according to this, apparently AMD isn't planning to release Windows 10 drivers starting with their next-gen APUs. Fingers crossed AMD changes their mind on that one. And lastly for today, Nvidia's RTX 30 series really set a new benchmark for just how big a GPU can get. And that trend seemed to get even worse with the 40 series. So much so that the PCBs began having issues with cracking from the weight of the card on the PCI Express slot. Well, it looks like things could get even worse with Nvidia's next-gen 5000 series. This one comes from a new report by the Chinese site BenchLife, where they claim that a cooling module factory they know has been conducting tests on modules for NVIDIA's RTX 50 GPUs. And according to them, NVIDIA has 4 plans ready to go with the highest wattage cooler set to dissipate an unbelievable 600 watts. Meaning NVIDIA's GPUs could not only be a huge power hog, but also come in a massive package. Don't forget that NVIDIA was clearly working on a new Titan or 4090 Ti card that had a giant 4-slot design. This could end up being what we can expect out of the 5090. Of course, as Video Cards points out, it could just be the maximum limit of the board, which is the same as the 4090 in terms of power draw, but I don't know. If the cooler is made for 600 watts, board partners will likely try to use as much as they can. Basically, we may soon need separate PC cases made just for our GPUs if this keeps happening. So while that does it for today, do you think cards will get even bigger next gen? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And as always, have a great day.